This is Interbeing, Held in Belonging.
I woke up and I was hyperventilating. I've never had a dream like that, but I remember that dream very, very clearly. It was as if I was in my room and I was awake. I can still remember how my heart was racing.
Welcome. Take a quiet breath with me and step for a moment out of the noise of the day. Let the mind loosen its grip. Let the heart begin to open. There are moments in life when loss opens questions the mind cannot easily answer. Questions about where love goes when someone we cherish leaves this world. Across spiritual traditions, a quiet truth appears again and again. That love is not simply something we feel, but something that binds reality together. A deeper current running through existence, connecting us in ways often hidden within the ordinary rhythms of life. And sometimes, in moments of grief or stillness, the veil thins just enough for us to glimpse something more. Not a different world, but a deeper dimension of this one. I'm honored to welcome Peyton, sharing a story about a profound experience that came to him one night, one that would take on deeper meaning after his mother's passing, and the quiet possibility that love itself may be the force connecting us all. I'm your host, Just a Grateful Guy, welcoming you to the quiet beneath the noise of the world, where we remember the love that we are and the deep interconnection it reveals between us all.
Yeah, it was good. It was definitely a lot of joking around between the two of us. Like the time I'd come home from school and I was talking about March Madness and some of the teams that were in it, and I'd mentioned Ohio State, and at the time I got crossed the teams between Ohio State and Iowa, and so I was calling the Ohio State team the Buckeyes, which she assured me was wrong, but after looking it up in front of me, I was protesting. She looked it up in front of me and showed me it was the Buckeyes. So funny enough, later on that year for Christmas, she got me an Ohio State hoodie to kind of, tease me a little bit in a loving way. So she was a great woman, and she showed up for me in a lot of ways, whether it's sporting events or in music or, forgetting something at home and running it to school for me, which happened more than I'd like to admit. She was there. She was always there for me.
When she passed, what was that time like for you, internally speaking?
Around that time when she died, it was especially hard. It was hard for something, so sudden to happen. She had passed away from a brain aneurysm that happened, overnight essentially. And just like that, she was gone. And so I think for a long while I struggled. I had grief that I kept, buried for a very long time. But yeah, it was especially hard. She was, my number one fan, and it's taken a long time to try to wrap your arms around the size of that loss.
I can only imagine. Did her passing begin to open up deeper questions for you about life, death, or what might exist beyond what we normally see?
I think after that, things kind of opened up for me in a way where I started thinking about, what it is to love and what it is to lose someone to death, and where does that love go, and is she still around? And those kind of questions started popping up for me and definitely were in my mind a lot. So I think at that time, I definitely had a lot of things going on just because I was a junior in high school, and those are kind of some pretty seismic questions. And while I wasn't always thinking about them, I think in silent moments I was.
A few months before your mom passed, you had a dream that stayed with you in a really meaningful way. Would you mind taking us back to that experience and walking us through it from the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. This was probably in the summer of 2014. So we had a big family, and for most of my life, I was sharing a room with my brother until my older sister moved out and kind of had all of our stuff moved out after she had gone to college. So I ended up taking her room. And so in that room, there's the bookshelf. There's a tall bookshelf on the left side, my closet on the right side, and then the door on the opposite wall. And so the dream starts where I sit up and wake up exactly where I'm sleeping in my room. So everything's the same. And the dream starts by that bookshelf on the left side opening up towards me, where I can see into kind of the doorway of the bookshelf. And in that doorway, I see this tall, winding staircase coming down into my room, essentially. And there's kind of a sky in the background, like clouds, that kind of thing. Very bright light coming through the doorway, and it's like, what the heck is going on? And so I see this figure starting to walk down the stairs, essentially into my room, connected by that doorway. And the figure seems super powerful, so powerful that I can't directly look at who this is. I can just kind of almost like, the sun, you get a sense of it, but you don't look directly at it. So I couldn't really look at what the figure was. The figure was in a robe. I could make out that it was, some kind of man, but besides that, it was hard for me to tell what was going on. And then this sort of like shimmering, almost like a pixie type figure enters my room. They have like this glowing trail behind them, and they're shimmering around, flying around the room. So I'm kind of watching that little figure flying around my room. And so the man comes to the edge of my bed. The bookcase closes. He comes to the edge of my bed. And so I'm kind of like looking around him. I can't look straight at him because of, how powerful and immense that feeling is. My heart is just racing. And he stands at the edge of my bed, and in this like very powerful, decisive, kind of tone, he says, "I'm with you, my child." And all of a sudden, essentially that phrase like ended the dream. Essentially, it was so powerful that the dream started crumbling, and I woke up and I was hyperventilating. And so I've never had a dream like that, but I remember that dream very, very clearly. It was as if I was in my room and I was awake. So that has stayed with me for a long time. I can still remember how my heart was racing after that, how I didn't really understand, or I couldn't process what had just happened, or how to make sense of that. But I knew that it didn't feel like a normal dream, but rather a message from God.
So, who in your mind was that figure?
I was very certain that the figure, the man, was God, just in his power, in the way that he carried himself, in his overall aura. It was definitely God to me.
After your mom passed, when did you make the link to this experience?
I was in choir in high school, and we actually sang this piece. I think it was called Omnia Soul. I think it was loosely about love and grieving and that kind of thing. And it was a really emotional piece for me to sing at the time, just because of the things that I was going through. But I remember starting to think about wanting to know what there is after this, wanting to know, would I ever see her again, kind of questions that were occurring to me. And remembering that dream as I started to associate through that song maybe about God. And there's an expression that people say that you live your life forward, but it only makes sense in reverse. And so if you look at my life in reverse between those events, it was, to me, a message saying, I need her back. I need this angel back in my realm. So I just want to give you a heads up. You're cared for, you're loved, you're set up, and you're ready to do what I need you to do. Kind of a feeling that came over me when I connected those two events.
Omnia Soul. I understand that to mean something like light everywhere. It almost feels like a message from your mom, that she's still with you, still walking alongside you on the path you've been on since losing her. As you've carried this experience through the years, has it shaped the way you connect with life, or the spiritual side of reality beyond what we perceive in the material realm?
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely find parallels to, I'll call it, more multi-dimensional topics like love in physics itself. So for example, the first law of thermodynamics is energy is not created or destroyed, it's transformed. And I like to think that love is a kind of multi-dimensional energy. It's not created or destroyed, it's transformed. And what I would say is that through my mom's passing, it was also transformed. I'm no longer able to engage with her in a classical world, but I think that in a higher world that's seated by a more multidimensional fundamental reality, that energy isn't gone. It's just different now. It's like, when you burn a piece of wood, it's not wood anymore. It's in the air. It's still there. It's just no longer in a recognizable form. It's definitely been hard for me, but one of the best things I've found to kind of quell grief is that when someone you love dies, the best thing you can do is try to be like them. And so what I've wanted to do is incorporate more of her in me in the way that I carry myself, so that where they know Peyton, they will know Beth, kind of idea.
So since that experience, have there been any moments since then where you felt that same kind of presence again, whether through God, through your mom, through guardian angels, other beings?
Yeah, not through God, the same sort of, direct format that I had all those years ago, but I have had some reoccurring dreams with my mom in it for sure. There's quite a few, so I'll talk about the main recurring one is normally we're at this park that's in my hometown. I'm always, for some reason, like a kid, like 10 or something, and I'm over on the swings or playing around, and she's around, she's on a bench or something, and one of the main ones is that if I'm sad or if I'm worried about something, dealing with something in my life, she'll come over and sit on the swing right next to me, and we'll just be talking about whatever it is that is worrying me or making me feel sad or whatever is on my mind. It goes on like that for a good while, and then normally, once I make the connection and remember in my dream state that she's gone, I'll look over and she's vanished, and the dream will end.
Wow. What do you think the meaning of that or the purpose of those dreams are?
Even though she can't be in the classical sense anymore, she can still be around if you allow yourself to not always be in the classical state of mind. And so, yeah, that's kind of the overall feeling that she's still there.
Many spiritual traditions suggest that beneath the surface of our lives, there's a deeper unity connecting all of us. When you reflect on this experience now, what does it say to you about how connected we might really be to the people we love, to those who have passed, and to the deeper mystery that holds everything together?
Yeah, that's a deep and powerful question. I like to think about it in terms of, you start with a sort of postulate that everyone is made in God's image. Everyone. And so each of us are a unique permutation of how God sees himself, right? A unique, never been seen before, being. That is still a reflection of God, but just in a slightly different sort of way. I tend to follow a lot of Stoic philosophies too. In Stoicism, one of my favorite quotes is that love the hand that fate deals you and play it as your own. And so I think a lot of people have tragedies in their life. A lot of people go through a lot of things. But once you start to love the hand that fate gives you and not just, look at it through the lens that things are bad for any which reason, it helps you connect more with the role that you're playing here, and it helps you feel more relaxed that this is just a game that we're playing. We're playing this hand, we're doing, our lives. Something more foundational. There's a greater connectivity that kind of supersedes this classic world. But we do important work here. We're a unique permutation of God, and we have to play that out and expand a seemingly never-ending understanding of what God is.
To that end, do you believe that separation is more or less an illusion that takes place sort of through the lens in which we perceive things, maybe through the ego?
Yes, I do think separation is an illusion, but separation also affords you the ability to live out the classical life. So what I mean by that is, I think in a more foundational sense, there is no separation, that you're always connected to kind of that more divine side of things, but that when you live in this classical world, separation can feel harmful, but it can also be good, because you get to act out this human kind of experience that normally doesn't happen. Normally I would imagine there's not really a lot of trials. There's not really a lot of turbulence. There isn't really a lot of struggle. And so there's kind of an element, I think, to living out the classical world that's like, it isn't always the worst thing to suffer. It isn't always the worst thing to feel, like in my instance, grief. If you really think about it at a fundamental level, one, I don't really think it exists, and two, it kind of makes this like beautiful up and down experience that we have to live in this reality.
If you could leave one truth from your experience for humanity, something you feel people may have forgotten but deeply need to remember, what would it be?
What I've taken from that experience is that it's important to spend your time wisely while you're here. It's important to make sure that you're really soaking in the experiences, and that when you have loved ones that you cherish, that you make sure that they know it, that you make sure you have your priorities in order, and that you tell the people that you love that you do love them, that you do appreciate them, that you are appreciative of their sacrifices, appreciative of the way that they support you, and that you love them, and that things will kind of work out if you let them, if you don't get in your own way.
Thank you, Peyton, for your honesty and for sharing such a deeply personal story. Before we part, I invite you into a quiet practice you can carry into the rhythms of your everyday life. Wherever you are, allow your body to soften. Let one slow breath in and a longer breath fall away. Across many wisdom traditions, love is not something that disappears when a life ends. It is understood as a living force, a current moving through the fabric of existence. Peyton reflected on the possibility that love does not vanish, but transforms, remaining present in ways the mind cannot always explain. For the next few breaths, bring your awareness gently to the center of your chest. Call to mind someone who has loved you deeply. It may be someone still living, or someone who now lives beyond the visible world. Notice the care they carried for you, and gently ask yourself, how might that love still be moving through my life today? Perhaps through a memory, through a quiet sense of their presence, through a value they passed on, or through the way their love continues to move through the way you treat others. For a moment, rest in awareness that love is not confined to a single moment in time. It moves, it transforms, it continues to connect us. In ways both subtle and profound, you are not alone. If it feels natural, carry this intention with you. This love continues. Through it, I remember the deeper unity of life. Take one final breath in and release it fully. May this practice remind you, in the quiet spaces of your life, that love continues to move through this world in ways both seen and unseen, and that in ways that we may never fully understand, we remain deeply connected. Until next time, remain held in belonging.